Cole Douglas' lover was experiencing a challenging labor and suddenly required a blood transfusion. I left the operating room holding the consent form, in search of a relative to sign it. As the midwife began to call out a name behind me, Cole rushed forward, his face filled with fear, and clutched my shoulders so forcefully that I nearly stumbled. In a gruff voice, he demanded, "You must save my wife and the baby. If anything happens to them, I will shut down this hospital." Despite being my spouse, he referred to another woman as his wife. A nurse attempted to soothe him, saying, "Mr. Douglas, please try to stay calm. Dr. Morgan is doing everything she can." Unaware of the tension, the midwife then remarked, "And by the way, Dr. Morgan happens to be your wife, isn't she?" For a brief moment, Cole hesitated, but quickly reverted back to the frantic and concerned man he had been moments before. His grip on my arms became tighter, causing me to feel as though my bones might break. "Megan means everything to me, if anything happened." "I'm sorry, Megan," he said through gritted teeth, "but if anything happens to her or the baby, I will never forgive you." The midwife, clearly upset, stood up for me. "Mr. Douglas, how could you treat your wife like this over another woman?" Cole's eyes flashed red as he growled back, "A wife means nothing to me. She is replaceable, but Megan is my business partner. She is more important to me than my own life." As I felt a sharp ache in my chest, I realized that Cole and I were only husband and wife in name. We had a wedding, signed a prenup, and lived together for over a year, but our marriage was never officially registered. He had once promised to make it official after trying things out for 2 years, but now, after over 400 days of waiting, all I received was the cruel remark, "She is replaceable." Taking a deep breath, I slapped him hard across the face, leaving a red mark on his cheek. His family's bodyguards immediately moved forward, but Cole raised a hand to stop them, his gaze unwavering. He gazed at me with bloodshot eyes and uttered the chilling reminder, "Remember your duty as a doctor." Utilizing the hospital's reputation as leverage, he pressured me to continue the operation. Ultimately, Megan successfully delivered a baby boy, bringing immense joy to both Cole and Megan's husband. Later on during my rounds, I entered the room donning a mask. Cradling the newborn was Cole's sister, Leah Douglas, who beamed at me grateful. "Thank you," she expressed warmly, "for saving Megan. You have no idea how much she means to my brother." Unaware of my profession, as Cole had never disclosed it to his family, Leah engaged in conversation with me, sharing insights about Cole and Megan's enduring bond since they were young teenagers. She recounted how Megan had always supported Cole, even during challenging times. Leah revealed that when leading with someone else, Cole was devastated and impulsively married another woman in despair. From what I gathered, to everyone in this circle, Megan was Cole's beacon of light. As for me, I appeared to be a mere consolation prize, born out of his heartache. A sharp pang of sorrow nodded within me, and without thinking, I emitted a choked sound that halted Leah's merry narrative mid-flow. The room hushed as all eyes turned toward me. Gently, I removed my mask. Cole's voice sliced through the silence, demanding Vanessa Morgan, "What are you doing? Do you not see that Lead and Spencer just welcomed a child and needs rest?" Offering no explanation, he glared at me with contempt and declared, "Someone of your caliber has no place practicing medicine. Apologize to Megan immediately." I remained silent, my hands trembling as I pivoted away. It wasn't fear of confronting Cole that fueled my actions. Rather, I could no longer bear the burden of loving someone in solitude. Cole observed my exit, seething with rage. He ordered his assistant in a frigid tone, "Contact the director. Instruct him to suspend Vanessa. She may return once she has." She admitted her mistake, and then he turned to Megan with a gentle smile, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "Did we scare you or the baby? Do not worry as long as I am here. No one will ever hurt you." Cole's reassuring words quickly reached the hospital director. But by then, I had already submitted my resignation letter. The director furrowed his brow and sighed deeply. "Vanessa, please go talk to Mr. Douglas. You are our most promising gynecologist. If you face suspension over this, it could damage your career and reputation," he expressed his concern. Placing my resignation letter on the dean's desk, I said calmly, "Then, I want to resign and pursue further studies abroad." The dean paused for a moment, then nodded slowly, remarking, "You should have done this a long time ago. Cole was holding you back." I had met Cole at an alumni reunion. He needed a wife to help him secure a major project, and I needed to get married to provide peace of mind to my terminally ill mother. So we made a deal and agreed to marry. Originally, I requested that we legally register our marriage, but he explained that his company was still unstable and didn't want any potential debt to affect me. I trusted him completely, signing a private marriage agreement and giving him not just my name but also my heart. However, I soon discovered that his company was far stronger than I had realized. He used our marriage to secure a significant deal, after which he began to neglect mentioning me to many in his social circle. Megan, consistently by his side, was seen as his one and only in their eyes. I confronted him about this early in our marriage, but he showed no remorse. Instead, he belittled me, holding my face with a look of disdain, and remarked, "All you know is how to perform surgery, Cole. You're useless in the business world. Megan is different. She's intelligent and strategic, unconcerned with titles or formalities. Even after our marriage, she continues to support me. Rather than being resentful, why don't you educate yourself further?" Enraged, I retrieved my acceptance letter from Harvard Medical School for my doctorate program and informed him of my plans to go overseas for further studies. However, he held on to me tightly, adamantly refusing to let me leave. "You're not going anywhere," he asserted firmly. Despite my disagreement, I ultimately relinquished my opportunity for studying abroad because of him. I innately believed that sacrificing this chance would win his affection, only to realize that I was merely a replaceable pawn in his game. As I finished up my responsibilities at the hospital, bidding farewell to my last two patients, I coincidentally encountered Cole assisting Megan as they were leaving after her stay. I observed the pair without any visible emotion and continued on my way. Megan stepped towards me alongside Cole, her familiar gentle voice expressing gratitude. "Vanessa, thank you immensely. Without you, the baby and I might not have made it," she said appreciatively. She went on to address Cole's behavior, mentioning that he tends to lose his temper when situations involve her. With a gentle smile, Megan apologized on his behalf, seeking to soothe any potential tension. Then, her gaze purposefully landed on my stomach as she began to speak in a manner that conveyed a deeper meaning. She expressed that having a baby could help stabilize a family, implying that the woman should quit working and focus on starting a family with Cole. With a teasing laugh, she suggested that Miss Morgan give Cole a child due to his love for kids. Cole chuckled and affectionately pinched her nose. Knowing that Megan had intentionally provoked him, I refrained from engaging in an argument as I felt exhausted watching their affectionate interactions. I casually dismissed the idea of having a child, stating that such a blessing was overwhelming for me and suggested that Mr. Douglas direct it towards Miss Spencer instead. Not waiting for their reaction, I walked into the elevator. The way I coldly referred to Mr. Douglas seemed to unsettle Cole, prompting him to grab my wrist tightly as we stepped out of the hospital. He attempted to pull me towards the car, but I firmly placed my hand on it. The man sternly chastised Vanessa as she stood by the door, refusing to enter. "Are you done causing a scene?" he snapped. Confused by this accusation, Vanessa's expression remained blank. Observing her lack of response, the man's frown deepened as he continued, "Megan's husband was just here. Your words could be misinterpreted." Disgusted, Vanessa pushed him away, retorting, "If he truly wanted to avoid misunderstandings, he wouldn't act like Megan's husband does at the hospital, publicly wrapping your arm around her waist." Defending himself, the man, named Cole, declared, "She's my best friend. Physical contact between us is natural." Angrily, Vanessa scoffed, "So is it also normal to ask her to have your child?" Cole's expression darkened with irritation, and he retorted, "If that's how you choose to view it, I can't change your mind." With that, he got into his car and through the closing window remarked, "You're not in the right state of mind lately. I won't come home for now. Let's talk when you've calmed down." And with that, he drove off, leaving Vanessa behind as his black car vanished into the distance. After my life was saved for good, everything fell into place swiftly for my relocation abroad. The day I confirmed my flight, Douglas Little paid me a visit. Unlike her brother, she exuded simplicity, kindness, and had not been in Megan's company much previously. Initially speaking highly of Megan out of ignorance, Douglas distanced herself upon learning the truth. Seeing me off, she appeared a bit melancholic. After being by my brother's side for so long, "Can you truly leave?" she inquired. I affirmed, "Yes, I can." Continuously giving without any warmth in return can break even the strongest heart, with some wounds remaining unhealed. Understanding my resolve, Douglas became emotional, revealing she was unexpectedly pregnant. Planning to inform Cole, Megan's interference led him to arrange a marriage for Douglas with someone she disliked. Despite her desire to keep the baby, she found herself in a difficult position. I used my connections to secure her a spot as a non-degree student at Harvard University. Additionally, I allowed her to use my ID for a prenatal checkup. After confirming the baby's health, we departed the country together. Upon arrival, we realized that our bank cards had been frozen, a typical move by Cole to try and make us return. However, he underestimated the resilience and determination of women. She sold her designer handbags and watches, while I registered for classes and began working part-time at a restaurant in the area. Not feeling completely secure at night, one evening as I was walking home solo after closing, I became aware of someone trailing behind me. Holding my pepper spray firmly, I hastened my steps and made my way towards the main street. Just as I was nearing the taxi stand, a hand suddenly grasped my shoulder from behind, causing my heart to skip a beat. Reacting swiftly, I spun around and forcefully applied the pepper spray, resulting in a sharp hiss and a man's cry as he shielded his face with one hand while raising the other, revealing a wallet adorned with a cartoon sticker. Speaking fluent Mandarin, he asked Miss Morgan, "Is this your wallet?" To my surprise, the person who had been following me turned out to be Brandon Teller, an actor who had been filming on campus earlier that day and had come across my missing wallet. Upon seeing me leave my workplace, he decided to tell me in the hopes of returning it to me. Unknowingly, I had enhanced my pepper spray with chili extract for added defense, causing Brandon's eyes to swiftly redden and swell. Despite the discomfort, he remained steadfastly holding onto my wallet. "Is it looking at me with an innocent expression?" he asked, blinking through tears. "Do all med students carry such deadly pepper spray?" Embarrassed, I blushed bright red. Out of a sense of responsibility, I brought him back to the small villa we were renting. Douglas had already gone to bed. As I helped Brandon rinse his eyes, I warned him gently not to breathe too deeply. His eyes, like twin oceans, shimmered with tears and drops of medicated eye wash rolling down like waves. "If I do not breathe, I might just freeze to death," he said with a pitiful pout that immediately filled me with guilt. I said nothing at first, just moved a little quicker as I cleaned him up. But when I finished, I noticed his face had turned crimson and something about the color of his lips looked off. Worried, I placed my hand on his forehead. "Brandon, what is wrong?" "Answer me." He finally gasped for air and looked at me like a scolded puppy. "Can I breathe now?" I could not help but burst into laughter. "You silly thing," I said, patting his shoulder. As Brandon's hand rested on my shoulder, he shook his head and then fixed his gaze on me with unexpected gravity. "You are finally smiling," he remarked. "Do you know how beautiful you are when you smile?" His words caught me off guard. Nobody had ever taken notice of my smiles before. Growing up in the aftermath of my parents' divorce, I was raised by my mother, a woman consumed by severe obsessive-compulsive disorder and a strict adherence to routine. She enforced discipline in all aspects of my life, including how I expressed myself emotionally. Under her watchful eye, I never felt at liberty to smile freely like other girls my age. Following my mother's cancer diagnosis, she urged me to hastily marry Cole, a man who projected an aura of maturity, stability, and dependability. On her deathbed, she whispered to me to embrace my true self, implying that Cole might not share her stringent ways. However, after tying the knot, I soon discovered that Cole mirrored her in his rigidity, severity, and control. What was worse, he often held up Megan as the epitome of a perfect woman, using her as a yardstick to measure my own worth. Whenever I let my guard down, he would scold me. He would remind me that I am a married woman and a medical professional, urging me to behave with dignity. He warned me not to act like a silly girl and threatened that if I continued to do so, I shouldn't bother coming home. To avoid conflict, I adopted a cautious and composed demeanor in his presence, mirroring how I behaved around my mother, never smiling. By 10 o'clock that night, Brandon's eye swelling had subsided, and he stood in the living room near the liquor cabinet, studying me with a pensive expression. Taller than Cole, Brandon possessed nearly flawless proportions and long legs that accentuated his striking presence. There was a captivating charm about him that could enchant anyone. Unexpectedly, he turned to me and asked for help in winning over a girl, catching me off guard. I could only respond with a nervous laugh, my own love life coming to mind. It was a complete mess, making me doubt my ability to teach others. Brandon, looking serious, quickly reminded me that I had promised to help him learn something. During our conversation on the way home, he mentioned my offer to teach him and assured me that he believed I could do it. I couldn't recall ever saying such a thing, but Brandon's sincerity seemed genuine. Curious, I asked him about the girl he was interested in. He explained that she was a fellow medical student and he thought that sharing the field of study might lead to shared interests. He asked for my advice on how to impress her, making me feel like the focal point of his attention. In a moment of spontaneity, I suggested that if she enjoys sports, he should invite her for a Christmas skiing trip, or if she prefers quiet evenings, he could cook her a delicious meal. I'll remove the candle at dinner yourself. Brandon responded instantly. But I do not know how to cook. I will pay you to teach me. All right then, as if worrying I might say no, he quickly added, I am in the entertainment industry. It would not be safe to have someone else teach me. I trust you. Besides, I will pay you more than you earn from your part-time job at the restaurant. Tempted by the generous offer, I finally nodded. Brandon was surprisingly dedicated. The day after he finished filming, he came straight to my place to begin lessons. Every day, he took detailed notes and even asked me politely about my taste in food. Within a week, he had mastered every dish I taught him. Looking at him, my eager student, I started to think maybe being a teacher was not so bad. Just when I was about to tell him our lessons could end, he looked at me and said, Sister, can I invite the girl I'd like to have dinner at your place on Christmas? I scratched my head. That might not be appropriate. I was planning to stay home and work on. Brandon insisted that I didn't need to worry about rewriting my paper. He sincerely expressed that he felt more comfortable with me around. Despite my initial reluctance, Brandon's endearing plea eventually swayed me. With Douglas also chiming in and supporting Brandon's request, I finally relented and agreed. On Christmas Day, to my surprise, Brandon took charge of all the preparations effortlessly. As I was busy with my paper in my room, Brandon later called for my help at the door. To my amazement, standing there was Brandon's assistant, Holbein. Adorned with a grand bouquet of champagne roses, Brandon shed his apron and approached with impeccable posture. Gracefully accepting the flowers from his assistant, he turned towards me. Sister, these are for you, he said, catching me off guard. I blinked in surprise and automatically reached out to take them. Brandon then guided me gently to the dining table, firmly holding my waist. As I gazed down at the bouquet in my hands and back up at the spread of my favorite dishes on the table, a realization dawned on me. The girl he had been yearning to confess to was me all along. However, his confession played out differently than I had anticipated. Brandon did not pressure me for an immediate response. Instead, akin to our cooking lessons, he began to delicately plate food for me without haste. Sister, he murmured softly, and he not reply now. Opening up to someone new is not an easy task. Peeling the shrimp and placing it in front of me with care, his eyes held nothing but earnestness. His radiant smile at that moment drew me in, and I found it difficult to look away. I need to express my feelings to you. It's important for you to understand that life is not just a single path through the mountains. If you raise your gaze, you may realize that the mountain meant for you has always been right in front of you. All it takes is one step forward, and happiness can be within your grasp. When I first met Cole, he insisted that he was the only choice for me. Even my mother agreed, saying that only Cole could bring me happiness and that he was my destined future. They believed there was only one path and one man for me. Spending time with someone like Brandon felt like going against their wishes. Over time, I almost started to believe it as well. I forgot that the path I walk is my own, and I have more choices than I've allowed myself to see. Lost in thought, I felt my phone vibrate suddenly. As the group gathered at the bar, Cole's companions realized they had been blocked by someone. Their attention turned to Cole, waiting to see how he would respond. Megan, who had just completed her postpartum recovery, rejoined the group at the table and poured herself a drink while suggesting that Cole should make amends with Miss Morgan, now that she was pregnant. She hinted that Vanessa might be using the baby as a ploy to bring him back. Cole's mood darkened at the insinuation. He had initially been pleased to hear about Vanessa's pregnancy, hoping it would soften her towards him. However, the idea that Vanessa was manipulating him through the baby was unacceptable to him. Cole had never yielded to any woman before, viewing Vanessa as nothing more than a decorative vase. Megan is far more useful than that. Megan urged him to say something nice and end the conversation. Their friends also joined in, encouraging him to be more reasonable, but Cole only sneered. He reclined lazily and remarked, "She's carrying my child. At most, she'll wander around for a few months, then come crawling back asking for money for formula. If Vanessa has any sense, she'll return before the baby arrives. I can still pamper her then, maybe even be there for her and the child. But if she keeps pushing me, I'll just turn cold again." Meanwhile, at the clinic, my action of tossing their Italian Carter caught Brandon's attention. He gazed at me quietly, his voice low and sincere. "Sis, he's just an old man you dumped. How dare he speak to you like that?" Upstairs, Douglas, munching on snacks while cradling her belly, suddenly burst into laughter. I couldn't help but join in. It felt gratifying to hear someone speak out against Cole. Brandon smiled as he observed me. "Oh." In an instant, he moved in closer, tenderly holding my face in his hands, resting his forehead against mine, and spoke softly with a warm, caring tone. I am nothing like that old man. Every time I see you, my heart races. I could never be unkind to you. Placing my hand over his chest, I could feel his strong, steady heartbeat. Blushing, I jokingly scolded him, Brandon, stop trying to charm me with your good looks. Brandon blinked innocently and replied, I haven't done anything. I teased, all right, you win. Suddenly, my stomach turned and I felt unwell. Brandon, something's not right. My stomach hurts. Without hesitation, Brandon lifted me up in his arms, reassuring me, don't worry, I'll get you to the hospital right away. He hurried out the door, holding me delicately like I was fragile. It turned out to be acute gastroenteritis from consuming too much junk food too quickly. When I woke up, Douglas was sitting by my side, exclaiming, I'm so relieved. Vanessa, I know what Brandon did. He almost flew in the entire national medical team just for you on Christmas, when there were very few doctors on duty. I could only imagine how chaotic it must have been for him, given the differences in how American hospitals operate compared to back home. But what touched me the most was that no one had ever gone to such lengths for me before. Not even Cole. Whenever I felt unwell, he would simply tell me, you are a doctor, go treat yourself. Lost in my thoughts of Cole once again, Douglas gently nudged me and reminded me that he was just a passing figure in my life. She advised me not to dwell on someone like that. Despite being unconscious from the stomach pain, I had heard everything, felt Brandon's panic, and heard him crying by my bedside, his voice full of distress. If Christmas night had made me decide to give myself a second chance, this moment solidified that decision. It was time to give Brandon a chance too. Turning to Douglas with a smile, I said, thank you for helping me see things clearly. You know what? Brandon is right here. This gorgeous man treats me like treasure. Why would I waste another second on a heartless old man? Douglas burst into laughter. I laughed along with her, our voices ringing through the hospital room. As I turned toward the door, I saw Brandon standing there like a loyal puppy, completely still, watching us with soft eyes waiting. After agreeing to give Brandon a chance, he began flying over from his home country every time he had even a few days to spare. He was only 2 years younger than me, but whenever we went out together, he would deliberately act like he was 4 or 5 years older. One time, I smiled and asked him why. He buried his head in the crook of my neck like a clingy child and said softly, I am afraid I look too immature. People keep saying I am not good enough for you. I came from an ordinary background. When I was with Cole, people constantly whispered that I was not worthy of being the lady of the Douglas family. For a long time, I had been viewed of being seen as an accessory, objectified, judged, compared, and diminished. Fortunately, with Brandon, none of that ever occurred. He never viewed me as an object. Instead, he often went out of his way to bring a smile to my face, even if it meant belittling himself. As the day of Leia Douglas's baby's 1-month celebration approached, I made a decision. I would tell Brandon that I had chosen him. However, upon arriving outside the villa he had rented, I was taken aback to see several bodyguards stationed at the entrance. Before I could gather my thoughts, the door swung open, and a middle-aged man with a severe countenance emerged, fixing me with a sharp gaze. So you are Vanessa, he spoke before I had the chance. Suddenly, several black cars pulled up behind me, and a swarm of reporters descended, cameras flashing and microphones thrust towards me in a frenzy of questions. Are you the reason Brandon flies overseas so often to see you? Are you simply using him for fame? Even the man who had spoken earlier regarded me with visible disdain. That's when Brandon himself appeared. Stepping out of the villa, he seemed transformed, no longer the warm, genial man I knew. Instead, he appeared distant, his demeanor. In a rare moment of stern presence, he unbuttoned his suit jacket and draped it over my shoulders gently. He then wrapped his arms protectively around me, shielding me from the cameras aimed at the crowd. His voice was firm and unyielding, stating, my wife is shy. I do not want any of you bothering her. He then led me wordlessly into the house, with an imposing man trailing behind us. As soon as the door closed, Brandon transformed back into the sweet young man I knew. He knelt down, an innocent expression on his face, and whispered, Vanessa, I am truly sorry. Before I could respond, the man exclaimed in disbelief, did you just say you're married to her? Are you serious? I gazed at Brandon, taken aback. He was at the peak of his career, a rising star with countless fans. Revealing his marriage could jeopardize everything, his career, public image, and future in the entertainment industry. Yet Brandon's voice was resolute as he declared, Dad, I married Vanessa. It's not for show, it's This is not a joke. I'm going to officially register our marriage. She is the woman I choose to be with, and I am committed to taking full responsibility for her. I am willing to stake my career and the future of the Keller family to protect her and ensure her happiness. I will never allow anyone to harm her. When a man is willing to risk everything, his career, his reputation, just to marry you, it's difficult to find a reason to refuse, especially when I had already fallen in love with him. However, I was anxious. His father's earlier reaction had left me feeling uncertain. I was unsure if his family could truly accept me with my past involving Cole lingering in the background. But to my surprise, his father responded calmly, suggesting we register the marriage in Ireland first and then plan a wedding ceremony later. Brandon was ecstatic. He lifted me up with joy in his eyes. Vanessa, can we get married now? I'm not like those older men. I will always support you. And just like that, I married Brandon for the second time. Pressure, no. The wedding Cole had arranged felt ice cold and transactional. There were no corporate guests or strategic alliances, just a legal marriage certificate and Brandon's family's approval. Surprisingly, Brandon even managed to get his fans to accept his marriage during our celebratory gathering back home. Leah Dudley served as my bridesmaid, and her baby became a charming addition to our wedding. She took me aside, offering words of warmth and support. Vanessa, I truly believe you will find happiness. Unlike my mother's lectures on becoming a proper wife, Lyda's words were simply a woman-to-woman blessing, void of admonishments. With Cole, I had lived under the constraints of obedience and restraint for so long. But now, no one sought to confine me. Brandon and my friends only wished for me to be my authentic self. Perched on that mountaintop that was truly mine, I finally saw. It meant to live for myself at Megan's child's third birthday party. Things took a strange turn just like before. Megan stayed close to Cole throughout the evening. Then, in a deliberately hushed tone, she told him that she was pregnant again. Someone had drunk too much and casually mentioned my name. I guess Vanessa's kid must be around 2 years old by now, right? Megan immediately jumped in, stirring the pot. Vanessa is so cruel. The child is already 2, and she still has not brought the baby to see Cole. What does she want? For Cole to get on his knees and beg her to come back? As soon as she said that, Cole poured himself a full glass of red wine. Everyone thought he was simply annoyed by the idea that I was still holding him at arm's length, that I was being too proud. But then Nathan laughed lightly and said, Vanessa is just being dramatic. Cole and I grew up together. Even if we shared a bed, nothing would ever happen. Cole could not hold it in anymore. He suddenly slammed the glass down, shattering it. Pieces of his eyes showing red, he shouted, enough. Are you going to deny that something happened between us? Megan froze, her husband lunged forward, seized Cole by the collar, and demanded, What did you just say? What occurred between you and my wife? Cole bitterly laughed and uttered one word, slept. The birthday party descended into chaos as Cole and Megan's husband engaged in a physical altercation. Both men ended up hospitalized while Megan, deeply affected by the confrontation, faced pregnancy complications requiring her to be closely monitored. Inside the hospital room, Cole's usual group of friends gathered, looking puzzled. Despite Cole and Megan's seemingly amicable relationship, a sudden explosion had led to the altercation. Even though their circle was aware of the affair, it had never appeared significant given Megan's open nature with Cole and others. Hence, the outburst perplexed them. However, Cole then took out his phone and revealed a set of decrypted messages. The private messages he had managed to retrieve painted a different picture. Instead of flirtatious exchanges, they revealed that Megan had been repeatedly sending mocking messages about Vanessa behind her back. Despite always referring to herself as Cole's sister, Megan had been belittling Vanessa for months, using personal details about Cole and Vanessa's relationship to provoke and humiliate her. Initially, Cole had brushed off the messages, believing that if Vanessa was upset, it meant she cared. However, 3 days ago, he enlisted a friend at Harvard to help investigate Vanessa's background. What they uncovered left Cole shaken. There was no record of Vanessa ever giving birth, leading Cole to question if she had really been pregnant. Knowing Vanessa, he was certain she would have done everything to protect their child. This prompted Cole to delve into Vanessa's medical history, where he discovered a hospital record from a few Christmases ago. Vanessa had been hospitalized for 4 days while unconscious, with the official diagnosis listed as gastroenteritis. Despite this, Cole was convinced there was more to the story. Vanessa had a miscarriage, and the belief that it was his fault haunted him. On the night she needed comforting, he had chosen to stay away in a fit of anger triggered by Megan's provocation. If only I had gone to her that night, he reflected with deep regret. Our child would be 2 years old now. Overhearing his sorrow, his friends intervened with words of encouragement. It's never too late. One friend reassured him, go find Vanessa, win her back, and you both can still have another child together. Another friend chimed in, she loved you deeply. If you apologize, she might return. Motivated by their advice, Cole immediately worked to locate Vanessa's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Megan, who initially resented Vanessa, felt threatened by her possible return. She had spent 3 years trying to remove Vanessa from Cole's life and was not about to let her return, so she currently withheld information that could help Cole in his search. Lou's daughter, Newell, was a clever and mischievous little girl. Once she grew fond of us, she began calling us Mom and Dad incessantly. The island residents genuinely believed we were a family of three. Brandon chose not to correct them. Instead, he gazed at me with a quiet intensity, occasionally casting a glance at my belly. One night, Brandon whispered softly, embracing me from behind, Vanessa, let's have a child together. His warm breath against my ear made my heart race. Blushing, I teased him by saying, Newell is right here. Don't corrupt the innocent. Brandon laughed and lifted me up effortlessly, suggesting leaving Newell with Lulu so we could escape the noisy crowd at the hotel. Just as I was about to respond with a smile, I raised my head and made eye contact with Cole. He stood not far away, surrounded by bodyguards, his jaw tense. With rugged stubble accentuating his lion-like horror, Cole growled at Vanessa, his voice trembling with simmering anger. I waited for you for 3 years, he demanded, his gaze intense. Sensing the tension rising, Brandon carefully lowered Vanessa to the ground, his expression serene as he faced Cole. Mr. Douglas, Vanessa addressed him calmly, I provided a separation agreement when I left. We never went through with a marriage license. The agreement was a gesture of respect to part ways amicably. But Cole's features contorted with fury as he dismissed her explanation. It means nothing, he shouted. You never told me about our child. You left me waiting for 3 years, Vanessa. How could you be so heartless? Vanessa noticed his misunderstanding but chose not to clarify. Cole's feelings were no longer her concern. Vanessa, come with me, he insisted, stepping closer. Let's go home and start fresh, Dee suggested as he made a sudden move towards me. However, before he could reach me, Brandon intervened, his demeanor stoic and unwavering. Cole, Brandon spoke in a low, commanding tone, stay away from her. Cole's body quivered with rage as he locked eyes with Brandon, his voice seething with fury. Return my wife to me, Brandon, he demanded. Brandon responded with a malicious chuckle, producing a marriage certificate from his pocket. You're mistaken, Mr. Douglas, Brandon retorted coldly, referring to random women as his wife. Your delusion is a sickness that needs treatment. Cole snapped at the provocation, launching himself at Brandon with clenched fists. However, Brandon proved to be more than just a pretty face, swiftly retaliating and causing Cole's lip to split and bleed within moments. Gasping for air, Cole turned to me, calling out my name with a hint of authority, expecting me to tend to his wounds. But I was no longer the same woman from 3 years ago, and I no longer submitted to his commands. Brandon intervened as the scene continued. His arms wrapped around my waist, and he spoke softly, honey. That old man really hit me hard. My face really hurts. Maybe if you kiss me, it will make the pain go away. I understood Brandon's underlying intention, to mark his territory and assert his presence, and I had no issue with it. I leaned in without hesitation and planted a kiss on his cheek. Witnessing this act of affection, Cole erupted in anger. Vanessa, you are my wife. You should be by my side, not with him, he yelled, attempting to move forward, only to be blocked by the Keller family security team. I stood by Brandon, holding Wu's hand, and exchanged a quick glance with Douglas. The three of us left the chaotic scene and made our way back to the hotel. Despite Cole's furious protest ringing behind us, I didn't look back. The chapter between me and Cole had closed 3 years prior. Upon returning to the hotel, Brandon and I discovered. It all began when unauthorized photos of our vacation surfaced online, thrusting Brandon's wife and child into the public eye unexpected. Despite our prior plans to announce our relationship, Brandon was understandably upset by the breach of privacy. Upon our return, he promptly initiated an investigation that swiftly revealed Megan as the culprit behind the leak. I was taken aback. I had never imagined that after all this time, Megan was still monitoring my life closely. My disdain for her ran deep, not only for her role in the end of my marriage, but also for her perpetual, unsettling presence in the shadows. Brandon picked up on my unease and took decisive action, engaging the formidable legal team of the Keller family to hold Maiden accountable for invasion of privacy. Additionally, Cole's company promptly cut ties with her and even her husband. After filing for divorce, Douglas, who confided in me during this period, appeared to find some satisfaction in the decision. However, I felt detached from it all. Leaving behind that toxic marriage had allowed me to broaden my horizons and gain clarity. Douglas playfully remarked on my newfound open-mindedness, but just as I was about to reply, I abruptly excused myself to the bathroom and vomited. "Vanessa, are you pregnant?" she asked, her eyes filled with excitement. Doing a rapid mental check, I immediately grabbed Douglas and headed to take a pregnancy test. The result confirmed it. I was indeed pregnant. Before I could even share the joyful news with Brandon, I unexpectedly bumped into Cole. Yet this time his approach was different. Instead of being confrontational, he followed me calmly, showing a gentler side and asking about Douglas with genuine concern. Despite Douglas's sharp and sarcastic responses, Cole remained understanding and patient throughout. He accompanied us without complaint, regardless of how challenging my interactions with Douglas became. As we arrived at my and Brandon's home, Cole's car pulled up outside, coming to a quiet stop. Upon Brandon's return, another argument erupted between the two of them, resulting in more negative attention. Brandon surprisingly didn't mind the gossip and even seemed somewhat pleased, stating making headlines for defending my wife is something to be proud of. However, his mood quickly shifted when the fight with Cole escalated. The revelation of my previous marriage was leaked, initially met with well wishes, but quickly turning into backlash from fans labeling me a divorcee and blaming me for damaging Brandon's life. The criticism grew intense, leading Brandon and the Keller family to hold urgent meetings to contain the situation. In a moment of vulnerability, Brandon expressed, "Vanessa, he couldn't protect you when it truly counted, not then, not now." On the day Brandon was gearing up for a press conference, Cole unexpectedly appeared at our door. His expression was filled with emotion as he reached out for my hand and began to speak. "He will not be happy. Come back with me, Pi," he pleaded softly. "He cannot protect you. I have changed, I swear. I will protect you now and not let anyone hurt you again." Just then, Newell emerged from behind him, brandishing her little water gun. With cheeks puffed up, she took aim at Cole. "You bad uncle," she scolded angrily. "Stop bothering Vanessa, mommy. You were mean to my mommy, and you are mean to her too. You are a bad man." Cole froze, surprised. "Did you just call me uncle? Are you not my child?" Newell glared at him and shook her head. "Of course not. You are too mean. Being your kid would not make anyone happy. Vanessa mommy is happy now with Brandon daddy and their own baby. If you keep bullying her, I will blast you with my water gun." Cole, a smart man, quickly pieced things together after Wanwell's words. Looking at me with a new expression, sadness crept into his eyes. So when Douglas left the country, it wasn't to study abroad. She went to have this. "Vanessa, did you really let go of me 3 years ago?" I nodded slowly, my voice calm yet firm. "Cole, our relationship ended 3 years ago. Please leave." Suddenly, the proud and stubborn man standing before me broke down into sobs, his body shaking with grief like a child. Despite my hopes that our child could bring us back together, Cole's revelation left me realizing that his love had been shallow all along. As he knelt before me, pleading for another chance to be together and raise our child, tears filled his eyes. Before I could respond, Brandon stepped out of the car and, approaching him, Brandon delivered a forceful kick to his chest. His demeanor transformed from the gentle papa figure he once portrayed. Now he exuded a fierce and unwavering presence, akin to that of a lion. Seizing Cole by the collar, Brandon unleashed a punch, his voice dripping with a menacing growl. "Cole," he snarled, "keep your distance from my wife, or the Keller family will not hesitate to dismantle the Douglas empire." Confronted with a choice between love and profit, Cole once again opted for the latter. And as he stood there, realizing the immense power of Brandon's lineage compared to the once formidable Douglas family, his heart sank with the weight of defeat. As Brandon ushered me and little Newell into the villa, Cole could only watch helplessly, his desperation evident in his anguished cries. Startled by the scene, Newell sought solace in my embrace, voicing her fear of the menacing man. "Mommy, Vanessa," she whispered with a furrowed brow, "that bad man is so scary. Please don't let him near us again." Brandon gently comforted Newell, then turned to reassure me with a calm and resolute tone. "Do not fear, he will not dare to approach us again." Subsequently, Brandon relocated us to the grand estate of the Keller family, who had shown kindness towards me from the very first encounter we had. I recently got married, and despite my in-laws' insistence that we live with them, my husband Brandon decided we should have our own space to avoid any potential competition for my attention. However, as my pregnancy progressed and with the presence of Cole lingering nearby, Brandon made the difficult decision to bring me home for our safety and to appease his parents. When I was 6 months pregnant, Brandon surprised everyone by retiring from acting to devote more time to me and the family business. His fans were emotional yet supportive as he bid farewell at a concert, where they created a beautiful tribute with glow sticks spelling out my name. Standing arm in arm on stage, we shared a touching moment as I noticed Cole in the distance, broken and alone, but remorseful. As tears streamed down his face, I chose to focus on the love and support of my husband and move forward. Bonus chapter. Cole encountered Megan after leaving Brandon's concert, where she shared heartbreaking news of her divorce and the loss of her second child. Cole was faced with a wild-eyed R, who demanded answers as to why he no longer needed her despite telling her she was the one he needed the most. His disdain for her only grew as he instructed his bodyguards to block her path and coolly pointed out her behavior. R broke down in tears, calling out Cole's hypocrisy in comparing her to Vanessa and accusing him of losing his chance with Vanessa due to his self-centered nature. Cole finally grasped the truth behind her words, acknowledging his mistakes and the consequences of his actions ever since the revelation of Newell's parentage and his dealings with Brandon. But realizing the truth was only the start of his journey. The sound was hard to take as it hit him square in the face. He despised Megan not only for her actions, but because she reflected the person he used to be. Regret blinded him to Vanessa's love. He regretted prioritizing profit over people and choosing Megan as the best option. With Vanessa gone, he felt no reason to go easy on Megan. Coldly, he told her she was involved in the tax evasion scheme and needed to face the consequences by going to prison. Megan snapped at this, grabbing a knife and stabbing Cole in the chest, saying neither of them could be happy. As Cole clutched his wounded chest, his thoughts turned to Vanessa, who had cared for him deeply. In a bonus chapter, it was revealed that Brandon, who had 2 children with Vanessa, had a secret. Tell her the truth. He had fallen for her when he was just 20 years old. At that time, they were classmates. He had injured himself while playing basketball, pulling a muscle. Vanessa had rushed over to help and gently massaged the area. He had never been one to easily fall in love, but there was something about that moment that changed everything for him. He started to observe her from afar, witnessing her rise to become the top graduate in their year, and then watching her go on to pursue a master's degree. Knowing that Vanessa's mother had high standards and only approved of successful and ambitious men, he took on a role in a drama directed by someone her mother admired, hoping to win her family's approval. His plan was to wait until the film premiered to formally introduce himself to her parents. However, fate had different plans. On the same day they finished filming, Vanessa married Cole. Brandon was heartbroken. That night, he drowned his sorrows in alcohol, barely able to stand. He waited outside Vanessa's house until morning, but even then, he couldn't find a reason to let her go. Brandon chose to remain in the industry to ensure that he would always be visible to the woman he loved. Despite the fact that he couldn't be with her as a husband, he was determined to find a way to stay connected. His resolve was tested when he witnessed Cole at a gala, holding Megan close and claiming that the baby she was carrying belonged to him. Brandon had to control his urge to lash out at Cole, but his father intervened with wise words. If you seek happiness, let your adversary self-destruct first. Before Brandon could make a move, Cole's actions drove Vanessa away. Upon learning that she was enrolling at Harvard, Brandon persuaded his father to invest in a foreign film production to be in close proximity to her. Their subsequent encounters appeared coincidental, yet they were all meticulously orchestrated by Brandon. Even the reporters at Megan's baby celebration were brought in from their hometown, courtesy of his father. Fearing that Cole would return for Vanessa, Brandon realized he couldn't delay any longer. Everything he had planned had paid off. He had succeeded in capturing her heart completely. One night, Vanessa woke up to find Brandon still working on his laptop, barely awake. She embraced him from behind and softly asked Brandon, "Why are you still up?" Looking down at her, he gave her a gentle kiss on the lips and replied in a husky voice, "Sweetheart, I'm coming to bed now." Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories. See you in the next video.